Everything that I've ever asked for was given to somebody else on a silver platter. And I had to watch that while I was completely broken and looking after a broken child. I had thousands of people walk out of my life, which was extremely confusing. I couldn't understand. I remember seeing someone at a supermarket and I said, "Why are you not supporting me? I'm a single mother. You've known me for so many years." And I just burst into tears. There were many situations like that. Hello and welcome to Raw with Jay. Now today is a solo episode and I must admit I'm completely nervous. I've never done something like this before. I've been on people's podcasts, I've done interviews with lots of people, but I've never actually done one straight to the camera. And it's definitely something that my podcast coach told me that I need to do. And it's about, first of all, letting you know who I am. I'm Jacintha. It's like Samantha and Jacintha put together. But people always call me Jay just because it's a little bit of a tongue twister. My mum's given everyone a lisp for the rest of their life. So all the kids in practice call me Jay. Now I want to take you back to where it all started. When I was a little girl, I was a happy little girl. I was always smiling and laughing. And then something happened when I was younger and I stopped smiling and I turned to sugar to be able to suppress my emotions. I grew up in a household that was very eat concrete, harden up, you'll be right, get over it, don't worry about it. And I was the third child. So I didn't really feel like my emotions were seen and heard and valued at that time, which most people at my age, I'm 44, would actually feel the same. Then I went to sugar. So I'd take $2 from my mum's wallet every day and go to the milk bar and just started eating sugar. And that was a way that I learned how to suppress my emotions, but also how to release my emotions because sugar made me really emotional. And then that eventually turned into alcohol. When I was in year 12, I started dating somebody that was much older than me who ended up being extremely abusive. I was in an abusive, domestically violent relationship for 15 years of my life. And I continued to ask the question of what is wrong with him? Why doesn't he love me? Why can't he just change? And after many years of doing so much work, I've realized what was wrong with me and why was I accepting that? And how low was my level of self-love that I actually thought that behavior was okay. And so that was then. So then I spent, 15 years of my life escaping my feelings, partying, going out, having lots of fun. And I wouldn't change it for the world because it shaped me who I am today. I've met some really great people over time. I've had so much fun. But there was just a time in my life that said, this isn't working for you. So I started seeing a meditation teacher quite secretly. Not many people knew. And she would actually get me to draw because I wasn't able to express how I was feeling. Usually I'd just grab a drink and I wouldn't actually express how I was feeling. And so she just got me to get a piece of paper, and she said, I just want you to draw. So she said, whatever intuitively you feel with your colors, grab those colors and just start drawing. And so that's what I did. And that was the start of my healing process. That was the start of me being able to really start expressing myself. I started reading books by Brené Brown about vulnerability and shame. I started looking at Dr. Shafali. I started looking at Oprah, all these people that at the time were so wonderful and such great influences. I just started reading self-help after self-help book. And I just realized that life wasn't how I wanted it to be anymore. So I started in a new relationship. The other one lasted, 15 years on and off. It was a really long time. And I was single for about 7 years. And then I entered a new relationship and we would continue partying, etc. Then I just didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to have that life anymore. I decided that it just wasn't for me. And I didn't really know how to escape from something that I knew. Every Sunday morning I'd wake up and I would have a chicken fillet burger combo from KFC and I'd get an upsized with extra salt on the chips and then water, for balance. And that was my pattern for so many years. And then I just wanted to break that pattern. So I started slowing down a little bit, like kind of just driving a little bit more and not wanting to drink so much. And then I became pregnant. And that to me was such a beautiful gift. At the time, it felt really confusing, but it was just such a beautiful gift to me. I always knew that I wanted to be a mum, but I thought that I needed to have the house first, right? I thought that I needed to get married and all of these things needed to be in their row. And I didn't have that at the time. But when I became pregnant, it was just this intuitive thing of this is where you need to be. This is exactly where you need to be. And so during that time, I didn't drink. I then breastfed my child for about 11 months, so I hadn't been drinking during that time. And then there was a couple of times when he was born that I went out. There was maybe about 3 or 4 times. Obviously you're pumping, dumping, all of these things. And I just decided that when my son was 18 months old, I wanted to get back to how I was. I used to be the fun party girl and I used to do all of these things and it used to be awesome. And I thought that's where I wanted to be. But then I went out, and he was 18 months old, and I went with my ex-partner, and we went to 2 different restaurants. I was having lychee martinis, I was having espresso martinis, and it was one of those things where I was like, wow, I'm back. This is, I'm back again. Yeah, great. This is the life. This is where we get back to. And something in my body said, no, this isn't who you are anymore. And I got so sick. I got so incredibly sick, like my body completely rejected it. And it said, no, we're not going down this path anymore. And so that resulted in getting really sick outside an Uber on the way home and having a hangover for 5 days. And I woke up the next day and I said, that's it, I'm done. And no one around me had stopped drinking. This was solely something that I was listening to my own intuition about. And I said, that's it, I'm done. And I got laughed at by so many people because, everyone says it, and I did too. I'm never drinking again. But I just knew somewhere within me that I completely meant it. And I've never drank since. And coming up on the 30th of Jan, 2026, it is 10 years of sobriety. Now, it hasn't been an easy journey because when you stop drinking, you don't get invited places or you'll get frowned upon. I had somebody once say to me, I went to a hen's night and I said, I'm not drinking. And he said, it's just the way you said it, like you were so much better than us. And I said, I just don't know how else to say it. I've just made a decision for me that I want to stop drinking. Now, with all the work that I've done in my life, I've actually realized that had nothing to do with me, and maybe that was a trigger inside them that really wanted to stop but didn't have that capabilities or didn't have the strength or the courage. Because when you make decisions for yourself, your entire life changes, and you have to be ready to stand out on your own. And I am that person that will always tend to do things differently to other people. And I'm okay being on my own. And so, that was when I quit drinking. In 2019, 2020, we separated. My son started school and it was COVID all at the same time. And he was not okay, and I was not okay. I went from a relationship that was very rocky for 2 years previous. I love you, I don't, I love you, I don't, I love you, I don't, I love you, I don't. I went from being at the top of my game to the bottom of my game. I didn't think that I could get any more rock bottom than I did, and let me tell you, it went further down. I remember being in my house and just crying my eyes out, not knowing where I was going to be, what I was going to do. It was COVID. At one stage, I was like, okay, we're selling our house. There was this really beautiful man, actually. We were doing works and renovations on my house, and I did most of them. And he was a guy that I just got from Airtasker, and he was so lovely. I was thinking about this morning. And he would come over and help me paint the house because we needed to paint the house, get it ready for being sold. And he would stay there until midnight just helping me because he could see how much I was struggling during that time. He would come over and I'd still pay him. I'd pay him till midnight, and we would just sit there like painting the house. And he was a beautiful man. He had a wife, he had 5 kids. He was lovely, and he was just that like guiding light of what I needed during that moment. And that's when I got introduced to Glennon Doyle, who is my spirit animal. I just absolutely love and adore her. I think that her journey and the way that she's so vulnerable and raw with her story is just so beautiful. So I would listen to Glennon Doyle, I'd listen to all of her books and paint the house and cry my eyes out, and then listen to her books and then paint the house and cry my eyes out. And it was a really cleansing, beautiful time, but also really scary. During COVID, I didn't know where I was going to live. I had no idea. I didn't have much help with my house. It was kind of just like, yep, that's on you. And that was a really hard time. And during COVID, I was like, well, where am I going to live? And so there was a few different areas, and I was thinking maybe I'll live up in the Dandenongs. So I went for a drive up to the Dandenongs just to see some houses that were available for rent or sale or whatever. And I got pulled over by the police, and the police were like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just looking at some houses. You are outside your 5K radius. You can't be here. And I just burst into tears, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to live? Like, I'm about to sell my house. I've got nowhere to go. I've got a child who at the time was about 6 years old. What am I supposed to do? And he said, well, I'm not going to give you a fine, but you need to go straight back. And so that's when we decided that I would go to the coast. I had a friend that had a little tiny house, and so we could go there for 2 months, just have some time to breathe, have some time to just regroup. I know that the beach is super healing. So I went up to the beach, stayed there for about 2.5 months, and that was like our little healing center. That was the place where I just felt that I needed to be. Now, Torquay was always on the cards for us. A couple of years previous, we went up there and stayed somewhere, and we actually put my son down at a school. It was a Steiner school, and I thought that was, just where we needed to be. But then as a couple, we made the decision not to go. And so it was always on the cards for me to move to the beach because I just find the beach and sunsets, I don't need much in life, but those are two things that I just love and adore and just make me so happy. And so then after a couple of months, we decided to move. I started looking at places and rentals and just looked around and I thought, oh, yeah, this is where I need to be. Now that got met with a lot of resistance, a lot of legal letters, a lot of different things, which I still to this day find so incredibly confusing. When my relationship ended, it ended very abruptly, very brutally, and not met with any form of kindness. I actually did a video which is about 8 minutes long and I listened to it recently when we were doing the trailer for this podcast. And I really did try to do it with love and kindness. Did I do everything right? Absolutely not. There's some things that I might have potentially changed, but I did ask for love and kindness. There was a conscious uncoupling course at the time that just came out with Catherine Woodward, I think it was, and I begged to do that. That was met with resistance. I had psychologists ready. That was also met with resistance. I just wanted to do it in a way that really was, it's for our son. I wanted to put our son first. Unfortunately, it ended up with lawyers, and I understand why, but it ended up with lawyers and it got really messy and it got really confusing for me. So when I made a decision that was already on the cards, like you can choose your path, but I also want to choose mine, that was met with so much resistance, so much pain, so much confusion, and I really had to, for the first time in my life, fight for what I wanted. I had to dig my heels in and absolutely fight. And anyone that's been through the separation process will understand. And if you've got friends and family, it's really challenging. It's really challenging when you're such a people pleaser and you want everyone to like you to be able to dig your heels into things and say, no, this is what I want and this is what I think is best for my son. And thank goodness I did. One of the mistakes that I made during that process is that I agreed to do all of the driving. So I agreed to do most of the driving from Torquay back to Melbourne. The drop-off was at Altona and it was a 4-hour drive. What I didn't expect was that I would always have to do all of the driving. So for 4 years, I didn't have any day-to-day help with my son. That was completely up to me. I spent a house deposit on lawyers trying to get somebody to show up, and that was their choice, and that's okay. But that's resulted in so many different health issues for me because I was a full-time mother, a single mum, trying to heal myself. I spent so much time hiding in my house like a little turtle because the world became so scary to me. I had thousands of people walk out of my life, which was also extremely confusing for me during that time. I couldn't understand. I remember seeing someone at a supermarket and I just saw him and I said, why are you not supporting me? I'm a single mother with a child. Why are you supporting the other side? Why are you not supporting me? You've known me for so many years. And I just burst into tears. And there were many situations like that. I think that people find emotions really challenging. I think that people find it really challenging when people are broken to be able to show up for them in a way. They will to a point. There were certain people that would be like, oh, it's 6 months now, you should get over it. Well, at 6 months, it hadn't even touched the side for me. I was still living in my home in Melbourne. This was a really long process. And there were so many things that happened, new relationships, marriages, new children, straight away, like straight up. Everything that I've ever asked for was given to somebody else on a silver platter. And I had to watch that while I was completely broken and looking after a broken child. And that was hard. That was really tough, but I just had to trust in the process and realize that I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to heal from this. And that's what I did. So living in Torquay for 4 years, I then, during COVID, let me take a few steps back here, I saw that kids couldn't gain access to psychologists. There was a 6 to 12 month wait. And I knew with everything I was doing with my own son, working through emotions, helping him go back to where I was and helping him draw his feelings and emotions out, I booked in to become a family and child counsellor and art therapist. because I subconsciously at the time, I had no idea that I hadn't even remembered about my meditation teacher then. But I just knew on a path that I needed to be. I just knew that I could be of service to children and families with everything that I'd been through. I knew that I've always known that the lessons that I'm handed are to be able to help other people. So I studied to become a family and child counsellor during COVID. When we were in Torquay, I did all of these things. I had a private practice and I just loved it. I loved and adored every part of it. I see children for who they are. When I was younger, I was always told that I was wrong. I was always told that I didn't know. And that's really affected my self-esteem in life. And so I see children for wholeheartedly who they are. You know, I think that if a child's behaving badly, let's put that in inverted commas because I don't really like that word, there's something underneath going in. Is there a lack of connection? Is there something going on with them internally that they need to work on? Is there something happening at school? And is there foods that they're eating? Do they have some form of intolerance? Like, where is that all coming from? And so during my private practice, I also studied play therapy. I was a kids yoga teacher. So I learned all the modalities to be able to help my own son. We had a private practice at home. So all the modalities I used in my practice, I had available to him, such as sand trays. We'd do bubbles. We'd have a doll's house that we'd build. I had a big outdoor backyard that we'd go out and we'd play hide and seek and all of these beautiful things. I was also known as the slime lady because we would just make slime in practice because the form of moving the energy through their body was so important. And it wasn't just helping them, it was also helping me. And I loved it. But after 4 years of driving to Melbourne on my only respite time away from my son, I'd stop off at a petrol station on the way home, get snowballs, get chocolate, get sugar because I was so exhausted doing that all of the time. I just had to make a really hard decision that it was probably time to move. So I was in practice with one of the kids one day and I said, hey, do you want to do some meditation? He just rolls his eyes at me like, whatever, lady. I said, you know, LeBron James meditates, and instantaneously he wanted to meditate straight away. And so that was the birth of Happy Souls Kids, being something more than just a practice. It was the birth of Happy Souls Kids becoming something much bigger to be able to support more kids globally. And so I started working on that startup. And yeah, after about a year or 2 years of doing that in the background while I'm being a single mum, while I'm working full-time in practice, like something had to give. And I think one of the best things in my life that I've ever done is said, hey, I can't do this. I need help. I had no help with my son. I was giving so much in practice, which I loved doing, working on a startup in any spare time that I had outside of that. And it was a lot. So I said to my son, and it was very last minute, like we hadn't really thought about it too much before I suggested this to him. And I said, mate, I think we should move back to Melbourne because I needed family support. My family didn't really come down to Torquay and help us. So I didn't have a lot of day-to-day support. I had beautiful friends that showed up during that time, but I didn't have any day-to-day support. And I think one of the strongest things that we can do in life is say, hey, I need help. And so we made a very hard decision to leave this beautiful sanctuary, this beautiful place that made our hearts happy, and move back to Melbourne. And that was a really hard decision at the time, but it was also where we needed to be. When you're building a startup, you know, you can't live a life of surfing as much as you really want to. You have to be in it. And you have to be on it. And so I needed to be at events, I needed to be meeting people, I needed to be out there, and I couldn't do that without having some form of support. So that's what we did. So that's just a really brief journey of my life and how I got to where I am now. So Happy Souls Kids is a platform. It's an app that's a gamified app for children where we leverage the influence of athletes and kids heroes to teach them mindfulness and self-regulation. Now it's in a kid's language, so it's gamified. They can earn stars and gems to be able to cash them in for things like vouchers and some other things that are going to be announced soon. And my life has been about being of service to other people. And with everything that I had been through, I know that this is where I need to be able to really help families because I saw the disconnection, I saw the kids that were broken, the bullying, the anxiety, the separation anxiety. You know, people need help. They need help with that beautiful connection. And that's what I'm here to do. But it hasn't been an easy road. I've had so much betrayal. I think the wellness industry is full of shit, to be honest. I've never had so many people compete and betray me in the last 10 or 15 years as a single mum than I ever have my entire existence. Imagine a mum who, and I don't always get things right. I get more things wrong than right. But what I am really good at is the repair. Actually, there's this really great quote. It says, "I'm not proud of every word I've said, but I am proud that I can repair. That I can own my part, and I don't hide behind ego." And that is a perfect quote for me because I don't get things right. I have verbal diarrhea sometimes. I say really stupid shit. I don't act as my highest good. I might have too much going on in my own life. I live with anxiety a lot, but I can, after years of work, I can notice the fact, or I probably shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said that. And I can show up and I can acknowledge the fact that I could have done that better. And I think that's a real gift to have because I have this other gift where I can feel the way people are feeling even if they can't feel it. And I can hold space for a lot of people. And the reason that I can do that is because I actually held a lot of space for myself. I gave myself so much time. I gave myself so much energy. On weekends that I didn't have my son, sometimes I'd just sit there and watch Netflix because that's what I needed. I needed rest. I needed to be able to recharge my batteries because the transition period when you come back is a mess. For years, it was an absolute mess. It was like a bomb had gone off. He found the transition, still does, really challenging, going from one planet to the other planet. It was really tough. And I'll go into this all in more detail over time, but we're just starting at the high level right now. And I don't think that you can understand the separation process. I don't think that you can understand the divorce. I don't think you can understand being a single mom until you are one, until you've gone through those processes. Because when I became a single mom, I thought, oh yeah, people are going to support and help, and they don't. Other single mums might help you, but you don't get invited to certain things or they don't want you around. And maybe that's because you're broken, but maybe that's also because they don't. And I found that probably the hardest part of this entire journey is how little support that single mothers have, how little support that they're offered from the government, from surroundings. We really have to fight for what we need and what we know is good for our children. One thing I will say just while I'm here is it is always in the best interest of a child to see the other party. Now, whatever they've done to you, I understand. I work with a lot of separated couples. I get this, but it's in the best interest in the child to be able to show up for that other party because they don't blame them, they blame themselves, as long as it's safe. So please never use your child as a pawn. Just make sure that their best interest is to have some form of communication with that other party. So there's also been times, I have so much to say. There's so many stories and so many things that I can tell you, and I'm not going to go too far into it because I know Angus over here who is doing all of our little checks. He's watching the time. But when I moved to Torquay, my form of success then was buying my child a house. Like I thought, if I buy my child a house, that is stability. Stability is all I've ever wanted, and all I've ever been shown is instability. Now, doing a lot of work on myself, I realized that that's actually because I've been really unstable inside myself. But I just wanted a house, so I got a full-time job. And I was really excited for this full-time job and I was really proud, and I can sometimes forget things, so I take videos or I write things down, and I was like really in it. I was like, I'm going to do such a great job here. This is fantastic. This means that I've got finances in order. I can get a house. This is wonderful. I found this really tiny little place and it was so perfect for us. And I was like, oh, it's great. But I didn't have my finances in order, so I didn't get it. So when I got this full-time job, I was like, this is amazing. And I'd studied Reiki during my healing process. I'd also done a sadhana, which is like breathwork, meditation and pranayama. And I did that every morning for a year with a women's group, which was beautiful at the time. And I said, oh, hey, I've just got to take Friday off because I've got a Reiki course that we booked in for months before that. So I went and did the Reiki course, and I came out of that Reiki course and I got a message saying, we're pulling your contract. I had been there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Now, this is something in the wellness industry, by the way. I'd been there for 2 weeks. I'd worked my butt off. I really tried hard. Like, I'm a pit bull. Like, once you give me a task, I will do everything I possibly can to do that. I will work above and beyond. I will work on weekends, after hours, anything that you need. They cancelled the contract because they found out that I was a single mum. And at the time, that was devastating. I just couldn't understand, and I still don't really to this day, how somebody could label you as not being a good employee because of your status. Single mums are some of the hardest working people that exist because we know how hard it is, and because we don't have anyone else to rely on us. We don't have anyone else to do our lawns or do the washing or clean up the house, do jobs around the house. We have to do it all ourselves. And although there's so much gift in that we learn so much independence and to stand on our feet, it's beautiful. But to be judged like that from another mother really, really broke me. And there's many situations like that. Single mum is not easy. It's not an easy gig. It's tough emotionally, it's tough physically, it's tough mentally, and we often put our kids first. And this is not just mothers, it's also husbands too, and parents and carers. It's single dads that often we will just put our needs in front of our children, and we often forget about ourselves. And what I needed to do was learn to fill up my cup first and really have that element of self-love. I actually wrote a 21-day self-love program before I separated, and I had to use my own program to be able to find myself again. So it was a really challenging time, but in saying all of this, I am so much stronger. I am so much stronger within myself. I am so much more independent. Turning 40, I think that's a beautiful gift. I'm not a 20 or a 30-year-old anymore. The entire process has taught me to trust my intuition, because during the moments where I separated especially, and some other things that have happened, I knew what was going on before it happened, and I felt what was going to happen. And I've really learned to trust what feels wrong and what feels right. I've learned about clarity and stability, and they're the two things that I call into my life now. If something feels really unstable, I move away from it. I do something in practice with kids called a friendship circle, where you have a middle circle, then an outer circle, then an outer circle again. The middle circle is like your core people. These are the people that mean the absolute world to you. Then the outer circle is not quite in your middle circle, but just still really, really close and really good friends. Then your outer circle again is the next layer of friendship. Then often with kids, if they're finding that there's bullies or they're finding that people that just aren't aligned with them, I get them to write them completely out of the circles. And so this process, although it was great for children, was also great for me, because I had to learn who was in my inner circle, who's in my second circle, who's in my third circle. And sometimes the people that I think that are the closest to me don't belong there. And I think that I've learned over time to, if somebody's treating me with levels of disrespect, just walk away. If something feels off, it's because it is, and it's time to walk away. If something feels like it's not right, or you get that feeling that you're not spoken about really well, and you're trusting your intuition on that, it's time to walk away. I think that we stay in friendships or relationships just because we don't want to be alone. But when you learn to be alone, there's no greater power than that. There is absolutely no greater power than learning to stand on your own 2 feet and not needing anybody else around you, because you want your friends to cheerlead for you. You want people to come in and help. You want people to write messages on social media. But as they say, start a business and you'll see who your real true friends are. The ones that don't actually support you. You think that they're going to, but they don't. So I think the journey to finding ourselves is about making sure that we're surrounded also by the right people. And sometimes that means making really hard choices and cutting off people even though you desperately don't want to, just because they don't fit into any of those circles. It also means that if those people show up with stability and show up with clarity and show up with love and respect and honor and have that ability to be able to fit in with your new version of self and your new values, amazing. But if they can't, that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to walk away from things that you don't think are aligned. I have this one person in my life, and no matter what I say, I'm always wrong. I could talk about the sky, I could talk about the grass, I could talk about anything, and I'm always wrong. Imagine having years of that, always being told that everything that you think and feel is wrong. They're the people that you need to create distance from. They're the people that you need to say, you know what, I love you from afar, but right now I just don't think that we belong together. And this is all part of my journey and all part of my process and all part of my learnings, that I don't need anyone outside of myself. I don't need anyone. I can wholeheartedly just be on my own and be really happy. I don't need lots of other things. I don't need a big friendship group like I used to. I wanted to be friends with everyone. I wanted like hundreds of friends. I wanted all of these things. But then when you go through something traumatic like a separation, where are they? They're there when you've got a contact to introduce them to. You're there when you can be of value to them. But when you can't be of value, where are these people? They're gone. They vanish. That's not a true friend. That's somebody that's using you. And it's been part of my journey is to know the difference. Because I've got people that I've known for 20 years that have still to this day never called up and said, hey, how are you doing? I've got people that I know from that were very close friends that still haven't called. There's been so many rumors, so many smear campaigns, so many different things that have gone around about me over time. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got. Because here I am publicly being raw, being vulnerable, knowing that, I don't always get it right, but I will grow. And I will learn, and I will apologize when I need to. But if you've heard something, come and talk to me about it. Send me a message, send it anonymously, whatever you need to do. Because the way that I work is that I don't need other people's approval. So if there's a situation that's happened, and there's been some over time with friendships, one of the best things that one of my friends has said to me over time was, you are vomiting your stuff all over people. Actually, I'm going through a really traumatic time. And I was gaslit, manipulated, and I wasn't treated very right. I was told everything that I thought was wrong, and then it showed up somewhere else and it was okay for somebody else. I've also been told, another thing that somebody said to me is, must be really hard for you to play the victim all the time. I have been the victim in many circumstances. I have been the victim when I've tried not to be. I have been the victim when I've tried to show up with kindness and love. I have been the victim. Does that mean I need to stay in that place? No. But it does mean that I will not allow myself to be treated by you in that way. That's not a nice thing to say to somebody that's going through trauma. When somebody's going through trauma, the best thing that you can do for them is show up. Now, you mightn't be good with the emotions, you mightn't be good with the feelings, you mightn't be good with all of those things. But showing up for people that need help is what they need. They don't need another person abandoning their life. Just be really honest and vulnerable about what you can show up as. Hey, I'm not good with the feelings. I'm not good with the emotions. I can't sit with you in that. But what I am good at, buying ice cream and watching movies. Do you think that I can just go do that and grab some ice cream? We'll sit on the couch and watch a movie together and I'll just hold you? That's what people need when they're going through trauma. Because you abandoning them because you've heard something that you think is true and you think that person is something, that's going to make it worse. Show up for people in a way that you can, because that's what they need. And I know it's uncomfortable. I know emotions and feelings are uncomfortable, but that's what humans need. Is they need that level of love and respect and honor. They need somebody there to say, hey, I got you. I got you during this moment. I know it's hard. So I've reached out to lots of people and asked for help, and I get closed doors. So I've learned over time not to ask. And I think that's really sad. I think that's a sad place to be in, where we don't think that somebody's going to show up for us, so we don't ask. And so I'm asking you to please, if somebody's going through a hard time, bring them some food. Take them out to the beach. Do something for them, because doing nothing makes it worse. So that's just a little bit of my story today. There's so much more to share. I'm happy for you to ask me questions. I'm happy for you to let me know things that you want me to talk about. I can go much deeper into different things, but that's me being completely raw. That's me being completely vulnerable. That's sharing a part of me, a part of my life that exists. And that is also what has made me who I am today. So I used to be known as Mousy. Mousy was a nickname I used to have. Then I was Jacintha, and now I'm Jay. It's like I've gone through many different versions of myself. But what I need now is to be surrounded by stability. And if something's not stable for me, I need to walk away. It's nothing personal to anybody. It's just that I have had so much instability in my life for so long. That's what I need. And so what I want you to do is start thinking about what you need. What do you need in your life? And are the people that surrounding you, are the relationships that you're in, is that what you've got? Because then maybe the hard decisions and the hard changes and the hard choices need to come. Thank you for coming to Raw with Jay. Thanks for being here. If you're a parent, carer, or somebody walking alongside children in this wild world, come visit us at Happy Souls Kids, a platform we created to give kids the tools that we never had and offer parents the support that we've so often had to figure out alone. Can you imagine kids had the tools that we now have as adults? That's the work that we do. Until next time, keep showing up, keep feeling deeply, and keep finding your way home to yourself. Love, light, and gratitude, Jay.